Everybody can hear me? So I'm Thokoza Sindlela, as Kadia said, I'm from GIZ in South Africa in a bilateral called H2SA. What I'll be presenting today is a study we did late last year as a comprehensive analysis of the status quo of green hydrogen in the continent of Africa. And I feel that the video that played before this was a great prelude to this because it speaks about some of the challenges that we also identified. It's a bit tricky to hold the mic and and also use a clicker, but like I said, the report is a comprehensive analysis of Africa's potential and readiness for a green hydrogen economy. It is positioned as a landmark piece of work that is meant to be dynamic. So what we envisage is that we want to periodically produce this exercise of landscaping or understanding what is the status quo of green hydrogen in the continent periodically as the economy progresses. So this is the structure of today, of the report. And today I will be presenting some snippets from the various sections that are covered in the report, but also try to bring out some of the contextual information on the status quo of a green hydrogen economy in Egypt. As you can see, we tried to make this report as comprehensive as possible. We first present a global sort of analysis of the green hydrogen landscape, and then we look at what is happening in Africa, and then drill down to the various topics that are important for a green hydrogen economy. So before we continue, I'd just like to give you a bit of a view into the methodology we adopted and also some of the limitations that we experienced. So as for the methodology, the report took a very tiered approach. So we had level 1 countries, which are countries that have already pronounced on their green hydrogen ambitions. So these are countries which have strategies in place. And then we had tier 2 or level 2 countries that are countries that may not have strategies in place but have already started exploring pre-feasibility exercises or studies around potential green hydrogen for their continent or for their country. And then we have the third level, which are countries that have resources such as solar and wind, or vast amounts of land, or CRMs, that can be utilized in the green hydrogen economy. So the limitations that we found in developing this study is, firstly, the study was primarily a desktop analysis, so it relied on existing information that is there in the public domain and not primary information, which means that the information is not exhaustive. However, whilst it's not exhaustive, we try to have a very comprehensive analysis of the public information, which also gives a very good overview of what's happening in each country and also the interconnectedness that can be achieved. So as you can see here, we give a global perspective of the green hydrogen development in 5 years from 2019 to 2024. And globally, you can see that the growth has been exponential. We went from 200 megawatts of electrolyzer capacity in 2019 to just over 5,200 in 2024. But Africa still lags behind, but Africa has some of the best potential. So Africa at the end of 2024 only had 23.5 megawatts of electrolyzer capacity. With this, there are 5 projects that were still under construction at the end of 2024 and over 39 projects that are in the feasibility stage. As you can see here, this is a comprehensive list of what we have in the public domain of projects, and Egypt is leading in the number of projects with in each year until 2030. And you can see across this graph as well, Egypt leading with the number of projects that will come live for green hydrogen. In 2026, we're expecting 2 projects to be live, And by 2030, we expect to have about 30 off in that year. So this slide presents the overview of the domestic utilization of green hydrogen and its derivatives in the African continent, and also the export potential. So from an overview of domestic utilization of hydrogen, you can see that by 2050, we expect to be producing around 20 million tons per year of green hydrogen and its derivatives, which is significant. There are still a number of gaps around infrastructure, which we need to collaborate on to resolve. And then from an export potential, you can see that we already have hubs. So we have the Southern African hub, which is Namibia and South Africa. And then we also have Egypt and as an export hub. And I'll get later into some of the export potential criteria that we identified for Egypt. Okay, so for Egypt, for domestic use, you can see that we expect about 1.4 million tons per year to be produced, and this looks at ammonia and e-methanol, and also industrial decarbonization for steel, cement, and other sectors in synthetic fuels. And then this is a slide I spoke about earlier on some of the export potential areas that we identified for Egypt. And primarily, it's the Suez Canal, which presents a great platform for Egypt to explore potential for export. This will require some infrastructure upgrades, of course, which I think are already being engaged upon. Egypt already has a number of international partnerships that it can leverage to maximize its export potential for green hydrogen. And then this slide presents the potential for the green hydrogen sector to produce or deliver jobs in the African continent, and also its contribution to economic growth. As you can see, by 2050, we expect to have about 4 million jobs in the sector for the continent, and about 150 billion in contribution to GDP across the continent. All right, and then in terms of institutional capacity, what we found is the status of institutional capacity in the continent varies across country to country. There are a few countries which have well-developed energy sectors and skills that can be almost easily transferred with some upskilling. For Egypt, there is quite strong institutional capacity that we found with the existing National Council for Green Hydrogen and also working groups for this. Egypt also has technical expertise because it already has hydrogen being produced and electrolyzer capacity in the country. And then for our policy and regulatory overview or understanding, we found that there are a number of countries that already have pronounced via strategies and roadmaps to achieve a green hydrogen economy, but some have not. But also when it comes to regulatory frameworks, codes, and certification standards, only Mauritania, beg your pardon, has a very comprehensive and clear regulatory frameworks. So other countries still need to come to the fore. There's a lot of activity in a number of countries to develop frameworks, standards, and also what certification regimes to follow. For Egypt, there is the National Low Carbon Hydrogen Strategy that is already in place, and there's also a Green Hydrogen Projects Incentive Law that is already in place. So this presents a clear roadmap for Egypt as to what it intends to achieve for its green hydrogen sector, and also sets a target of producing to 5.6 million tons of low carbon hydrogen by 2040. And then we come to the financing. So our study found that there is a lot of financing for, for hydrogen development that is coming from Europe, but a large portion of these funds remain undispersed, which is as a result of very low FID rates of projects in the continent. So this means we need to do a lot more to support projects to be able to reach FID. There is an emergence of some innovative blended finance mechanisms that are being explored. We can see here that some of the gaps that are identified, which were also highlighted in the video before, the infrastructure gaps. In some areas, there's still regulatory uncertainty for green hydrogen. And then these are some of the blended finance initiatives that's already being explored in the continent. And then I'll get into some of the recommendations from our study. And our recommendations are very much around regional integration to support a thriving green hydrogen economy across the continent. So one recommendation was establishing green hydrogen corridors, utilizing the existing regional economic communities. And this would be fundamental because it would allow countries to scale the already existing resources that they have in their countries to support developing an economy. And then the harmonization of regulatory frameworks across regional blocks, which will also support trading within regional blocks and within the continent of green hydrogen and its derivatives. This was prior to the publication of the AU strategy, but also one other recommendation was to create a comprehensive green hydrogen infrastructure plan. So the AU strategy also makes pronouncements on this, but it still has not been achieved, even though there is a power systems master plan for the continent. Another recommendation is to develop regional financial instruments to support with risk mitigation. We also propose fostering more cross-border industrial clustering and value chain development for the continent. And then we also propose establishing a Pan-African Green Hydrogen Knowledge and Innovation Hub, because there are countries that have made significant strides in R&D capacity for hydrogen and others haven't, but this information can almost be transferable from context to context. And then the last set of recommendations that we produced was supporting the development of coordinated talent and workforce mobility. So let's leverage the skills that we have within the continent to utilize them within the region, and also support initiatives that are to develop skills within regions and for the continent. The alignment of national and regional strategies, and then joint implementation of environmental and social safeguards. There are countries and projects which have made strides on this topic, but others still lag behind. We also have a number of sectors where we can draw lessons for environmental and social safeguards for a developing sector. And then the last one was to promote diplomatic coordination and global advocacy for green hydrogen for the continent. So very much a single voice for the continent in foreign direct investment attraction. And that is my presentation. Sorry, there's a bit of a thing going on there with the presentation, but you can access the reports by scanning this QR code and go into detail into the number of topics that we've highlighted here. And I hope it helps you to build a bit of a contextualization of what is the status quo of green hydrogen development in the project. Thank you.
You can leave it there. No. Thank you, Mto. And you just made it very short because the report is very long. So thank you so much for somehow breaking it down for us and also highlighting the developments in Egypt and connecting the dots. I love the statement of the African Union, the continent has to come together and speak with a single voice. This is important. That was the vision for the continent, and we believe Egypt is a key aspect of that. And we're happy that we saw other countries that are also represented here, Namibia, South Africa, that we also have at this conference today. But actually Africa wants to become part of the global hydrogen market. We don't want to just participate in a trade with Europe or just stay by ourselves. We also want to participate in a global market and be a player and a big player. But we have other countries like Australia that have already also had some developments and projects. So CDM Smith, you heard about them yesterday already on the panel and in the keynote, has brought a colleague from Australia. I would like to introduce Julia Curran, Associate Environmental Scientist, CDM Smith, Australia. She will share a lesson from her country, engineering the foundations of green hydrogen, experiences derived from Australia's energy transition. Thank you for being here, Julia. Mto, did you take the clicker? Oh no.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'd like to welcome our distinguished guests and my fellow colleagues. Thank you for being here. Cardi stole half of my introduction, so my name's Julia and I'm from Australia, and we worked on a project for Fortescue. So an overview of what I'm going to talk about today is the challenges of the design and construction of these kind of projects that we have in Australia, an overview of a green hydrogen project that we worked on. I'm going to run through the constraints assessment that we performed for the environmental and project requirements, and I'm going to show you how we conducted our risk assessment and ultimately our outcomes. Australia's population is mostly found along our coastline, and more so along our eastern coast. And this means that there is a lot of available land ideal for undertaking these large-scale projects. However, the problem then lies with how do we resource these projects when there's no one around to do the work, and there's no fabrication or manufacturing yards, and there's no materials for hundreds or thousands of kilometres. With respect to the hydrogen projects, there'll be the need for water. We have discussed this. And for the majority of Australia, surface water is scarce in these inland areas. And it's also seasonal. But sometimes groundwater can be available, but this has to be feasible and it has to be environmentally friendly. We need to consider climate change and resiliency. We need to demonstrate how the projects that we're building today will withstand the extremes of a changing climate and these increased weather events and intensity. Finally, we have the 3 layers of regulatory approvals that need to be sought before we can commence. Our economy and our market are shifting to support green energy projects, but different levels of government are doing this at varying degrees of efficiency. Australia currently has 78 hydrogen projects at various stages of development or operation, with 23 of these proposing to export their products to the international market. Products that seek alignment with the national hydrogen strategy will gain their approval quicker. However, our national strategy fails to provide any tangible support from our federal government. In Western Australia, where I am from, our project, our case study that I'll talk about, was directly aligned with the state's goals. The West Australian strategy outlines provisions for funding, resourcing, and assistance for policy development from government to enable hydrogen projects to get underway. We currently have 25 hydrogen projects in Western Australia, with just half of these looking to secure international offtake agreements with the Asia Pacific and European markets. Overall, I believe that Australia is reasonably well supported by our government to make the transition to green hydrogen. At the bottom, and I hope you can see it, but I've provided a link to a web page which is tracking all of the hydrogen projects in Australia, and it has some more details about each of those. The project that I'm talking about, it consisted of the construction and generation of power from solar and wind in order to produce the hydrogen. Due to the scale of the project, options for the project construction and approval considered if the project should be done or could be done as a single mega project, or whether it should be undertaken as a phased approach. And a phased approach needed to allow phase 1 to be independently successful without the reliance on phase 2, and phase 2 to be independent of the success of phase 3. For the production of hydrogen, we needed about 20 electrolyzers. We needed pipelines for the transport of the hydrogen product. For the import of materials, we considered the sourcing and the transport of materials, remember, hundreds and thousands of kilometres to these hubs, including the development of a materials offloading facility along the coastline. The construction of the solar farm, the wind farm, the construction of high voltage power lines, pipelines for the hydrogen, the water and the ammonia. Additional road and rail needed to be built. The construction and licensing of multiple concrete batch plants and quarries across the project site, and the construction of multiple camps for the accommodation for the workers during the construction phase. We also had a desalinisation plant so that we could have access to reliable water. For the export, we had the construction of a product loading facility so that we could service the offshore market. And all of this single project was to cover an area of 67,000 square kilometres with a maximum project width of 735. So what this slide is showing is a map of my country, and I've got an image of Egypt overlying there, and the blue area represents an area of similar size to the project that we were considering. Similar to Africa, Australia has a lot of land that can be used to generate power. And this can be accessed through the purchase of land, which gives us land security, or we can, if the land is vested with the government, we can lease it through a right-of-way agreement, though then the access to the land may not be exclusively ours. High-quality water is needed for the production of hydrogen, and this can come from the desal plants. But we have also successfully demonstrated that we can source water at some of the most arid environments through our groundwater assessments and drilling programs. And this was done at BHP Carrapateena mine. And then this groundwater can be used in our construction phase. At the production facility, we were considering whether the product was to be exported as ammonia, liquefied hydrogen, or methylcyclohexane. And then we needed a range of pipelines needed for the transport of the water, the gaseous hydrogen, and the ammonia. So this is what we did. CDM Smith's role was to undertake the constraints assessment, and we did this through the review of data and analysis. We interrogated the client's data, but we also used that data that was publicly available, and then that data was integrated into a GIS system and allowed us to create a mapping tool that could be shared with the client. This allowed us to visualise the design of the project, understand its magnitude, but also understand the limitations of the existing infrastructure. And by having this platform, it was then able to be used as a tool for both internal and external stakeholders. We looked at the constraints across the land and the marine systems and considered the environmental, social, and cultural aspects. And these were given a ranking of red, orange, yellow, and green, corresponding with extreme high and medium and low risk. Gaining government approvals is critical to our projects. And by looking at these constraints, we were able to provide options to Fortescue about the various approval pathways and which one would be the quickest. Early approval means that construction can start and the project can get underway. For this project, that needed to be attained before we could even break ground. So this is an image of the mapping tool that we created. And some of the constraints that we considered important to the project included the disturbance of native vegetation, which is very important over in Australia. And depending on the significance of the impact, this will determine if biodiversity offsets or some sort of compensation is required. If the offsets are triggered, then this needs more land is needed for offsetting, which also means for us more time and more surveys at a financial cost to the client. And this can also mean delays. We looked at areas that were considered to be of social and environmental importance, and these included Ramsar sites and national parks, species of conservation significance, and of which there were 79 listed as threatened and 66 as migratory, and all 145 species had to be demonstrated that they'd been considered. We had marine conservation areas and the archaeological sites, like Aboriginal rock shelters. But we also found by undertaking this constraints assessment that we were able to identify areas of opportunity, such as linking in with existing infrastructure, identifying those parties with non-competing interests, and explore the sharing of resources, which could reduce the capital expenditure of the project or the running costs. Many of our mid and top tier companies are developing renewable energy hubs, which produce more energy than they need for their own operations, and they're looking to sell the excess energy. Or their project life is finite, so they could be looking to on-sell these assets once no longer needed. And these projects were considered to either supplement or to replace the sources of power generation for these projects. With the understanding of these project constraints and opportunities, the project could be redesigned to try to avoid these areas of extreme and high risk and explore and capitalise on those areas where those opportunities presented. This showed a reduction in the impact to the environment and assists with quicker approvals. With all of this information from the constraints mapping, CDM Smith drafted the risk assessment. And we applied a conservative approach, such as taking the maximum extent of the impact. By doing this, we reduced the risk of having any unexpected issues or restrictions later in the project. It allowed for flexibility in the siting of the infrastructure, allowing alterations to the base case design, and avoids significant adverse impacts, making our approval pathway smoother and cheaper. We considered statutory requirements, such as policies and legislation, but also the non-statutory requirements, such as soil stability and risks of flooding. We conducted the workshops with the project team members from CDM Smith and Fortescue, and the risk assessment took the approach that likelihood meant the potential for delays, while complexity represented the effort or the capex, the cost for the studies, the need for offsets, the costs involved for engineering and design. Andreas mentioned yesterday that when we deliver projects, CDM Smith apply a collaborative approach with our clients. We make sure that we understand their problem and we work through this with the project team. For this project, we considered it imperative that our findings from our assessment were communicated to the internal stakeholders at Fortescue. This provided not only an opportunity to share valuable knowledge and confirm the constraints, but also allowed their subject matter experts to add anything that had been missed. These workshops provided a forum for the Fortescue team to socialise and to agree on the risk rankings that were allocated, but more importantly, it made sure that everyone was in agreement on the pathway forward. This resulted in a table that identified the constraint types and the rating, and it was given an explanation as to why, and that is a valuable tool for external stakeholder engagement because it can demonstrate the transparency in the risk assessment process. This was then able to be presented and delivered to the client as an interactive constraints mapping tool. It allowed Fortescue to interrogate the layers and the constraints and, if necessary, manipulate the project to identify potential alternatives in the project footprint. The layers can be switched on and off to only show certain types of constraints. And this one is showing all the layers with extreme risk, red on top, followed by the high, medium and low risks. You can drill down further to only show those of which you want to interrogate. So this one's showing matters of national environmental significance, such as threatened species or World Heritage areas. And you can drill down further again just to show the habitat of a critically endangered species. We can also show those aspects of social concern, like sensitive receptors or where people live. I mentioned soil stability and risk of flooding. You can show those things to your stakeholders as well. The methodology behind this approach is easily applied to any project or location. Our team has delivered it across the Northern Territory, Queensland and Western Australia. As part of this project, we were able to identify that a phased approach to the project approval should be considered by Fortescue, reducing the assessment time from our governments from 8 to 3.5 years. The development of the project dashboard allows you guys, yourself, to interrogate the data, and this can be hosted and maintained by CDM Smith, or it can be integrated into your own GIS platforms. The variable used in the assessment can be tailored to your project and can consider your own specific environmental and social considerations, any policies or legislation, and any corporate goals or objectives that you want to achieve. And this tool is very handy for investors to easily demonstrate your ESG considerations. Finally, we're no longer bound by geography, and we have demonstrated that this methodology can be applied remotely, but we ensure that this is done in collaboration with you and your team. I probably don't have time to take any questions, but if you have any questions about the project or what CDM Smith do, come and see us at the booth. But I'd like to thank everyone for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia, so much for this and for showing how similar the projects actually are. Doesn't matter where in the world they are. I'm very honored that we can welcome the Honorable Deputy Minister, Dr. Ayman Bahar Eldin, from the Ministry of Education. We will listen to a speech of him first, and then we'll have a short fireside chat as mentioned in the program. Welcome, Honorable Minister. A round of applause, please.
Good morning, everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I'm conveying the greetings of His Excellency, the Minister of Education and Technical Education, Mr. Muhammad Abdul Latif. He is currently in Japan in a work mission, so I'm representing him today and representing the Ministry of Education and Technical Education. We are living in a world that is very hungry to energy. There is a lot of things happening around. In my own specialty as a computer engineer, as a professor of computer engineering, let me give you a very short glimpse about the energy consumption in ICT. Currently, ICT consumes between 1.5 to 2% of the global energy produced in the world. Most of them are used currently in switching, in just transferring data from a point to point, and we are seeing a growth in the data centers for AI, which are going to consume a lot of energy in the future. Compared, for example, to aviation, aviation is just almost about 2.5%. So we are talking about just 50% increase. We are talking about the civil and the military aviation industry. So there is a lot of hunger now. There is a lot of demand on the energy for several things. I think in Africa it's a challenge at the end of the day, because in a development continent like Africa and the development of countries there will be a huge demand on energy for the development of new technologies, as I mentioned, AI and ICT, and of course for other development disciplines like, for example, water and irrigation, and lots of things are now hungry to energy. In the Ministry of Education and Technical Education, we are focused to participate in our Egypt Green Vision and Egypt 2030 strategic plan for producing at least 40% of the total energy in Egypt from renewable sources, including, of course, the green hydrogen and other renewable resources. So we are the player that provides level 2, level 3, and maybe level 4 technicians and technologists to this particular discipline. So we are responsible for developing and supply of the workforce for green transition. This means that technical education and TVET at large are the main supplier of workforce that will power Egypt's energy transmission from technicians to plant operators and maintenance specialists. So the Ministry of Education is proud to have given priority to prepare its students for emerging green sectors needs, including, of course, hydrogen. We had a lot of reforms in the education the last decade, and we have a very ambitious strategic plan and a reform that is under the name of TE 2.0, Technical Education 0.0 reform, which support international development, and with the support and of the aid of our international partner, and in the focus of that, of course, is the German Development Cooperation, the GIZ. Egypt is introducing a new generation of technical and technological schools and programs that are demand-driven, industry supplied, and work-based education. Work-based education is one of our main strategies and techniques that we are implementing right now to provide a ready-to-the-market technician, a ready-to-the-market technologist, either in undergraduate education, as we do in the Ministry of Education and Technical Education, or in the graduate education, like the new technological universities in higher education. Our approach relies on a strong partnership with the private sector, including companies and, of course, other organizations active in renewable energy, manufacturing, and hydrogen production. We are working closely with our partners on enhancing the quality of programs and schools to be benchmarked to international standards. Through different work-based learning models, such as the Applied Technology Schools, the Center of Competences, and the Dual Education System, students gain hands-on experience in relevant workplaces and in close connection with the industry experts. We have dedicated schools right now. For example, we have one Applied Technology School in nuclear energy. It's Al Daba Nuclear Energy School, for example. And we have different programs in other schools. We have a Center of Competences that is built right now in near Cairo, in Al Abur, that will be dedicated to renewable energy. And we have programs in hydrogen, for example, that will be started in the next year, 26, 27, inshallah, for hydrogen production in the Suez Canal and the Suez Economic Zone territory in different schools and different disciplines. So we are, as I mentioned, part of the Egypt's national strategy direction transition to a green economy. That's the big umbrella that we are working under that. That is the green economy. We are taking serious steps to green our schools, programs, and processes. So this is also not for just providing technicians or preparing students for further education, higher education institutes, but also now we are focusing on transferring the schools themselves into green schools and to be benchmarked as a green green facilities, something towards that. We are closely working with the GIZ on upgrading technical education to build the needed workforce for Egypt transition to a green economy. This includes the following highlights: development of competencies-based programs in occupations relevant for the green transition, including a green hydrogen technician in the pipeline to be introduced, as I mentioned, into 26, 27, along with the technical and pedagogical training of teachers and trainers in companies and in industry for the rollout of these programs, introducing of a cross-cutting environmental competence until that will be implemented in all related programs. For example, we are not just focusing on energy production, but energy consumption, transmission, or even in other industrial specializations like electricians, mechanical technicians, and so on. So we have developed a unit that is cross-cutting all the programs that is environmental related and green energy related as a competency that is required from all the technicians graduating from our schools. Updated modern programs are being offered in the two centers of competencies in industrial engineering and automotive, an inspiring model of the public-private partnership in TVET, so to ensure the alignment with the national and international labor market and green economy requirements. So at the end of the day, Egypt sees itself as a regional leadership in this particular field because, of course, of the vast amount of students and graduates that we are having right now, and the base that we have in this kind of technologies, green and renewable energies at large. Green hydrogen offers great potential not only for clean energy, but also inclusive economic opportunities where we can provide our young generation with the skilling and upskilling options for a fair and responsible transition. Egypt youth empowered through modern and green TVET will be at the heart of this transformation. The Ministry of Education and Technical Education stands ready to work hand in hand with industry, investors, and of course our partners in the continent, in Africa and Europe, because at the end of the day, it is a global problem that needs global cooperation, that needs global solutions. Energy is a needed commodity, and the hunger, as I mentioned in the first place, is increasing. The development cannot be done in any other field, in agriculture, in mining, in building, in industries, in other things, services, everything cannot be on the base that we require without a continuous source of energy, a renewable source of energy. At the end of the day, I see the green hydrogen initiative like building our own sun on Earth. All the energies that we are consuming right now came from the sun in the first place. Even the fossil fuel that we are using right now came from old plants, maybe hundreds of thousands or millions of years ago. But with this kind of technology, we are building our own sun on Earth. So let's hope for the best. Thank you, and welcome to Cairo at the finish of my statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Please come and take a seat with me. That was the perfect keynote, actually, because yesterday there were a lot of mentions about skills development and interconnectivity. Please take a seat. And you touched that industry needs to be involved, and this is why I am very, very happy that Narayanan Valayaputtur, CEO of the Egyptian Fertilizer Company and Egypt Basic Industry Corporation, is also here with us. A very warm welcome and applause. Please. Okay. We thought this topic of skills development is so important, and it would be good to have not only somebody from the public sector, but also somebody from the private sector actually highlighting. And then we have a project that is actually very, very relevant to the hydrogen development in Egypt right now. I loved, Honorable Minister, that you said work-based education and to provide ready to the market competences. That is so, so important, and often these things are not looked at together, they're often looked at separately. Since we heard from you already, Honorable Minister, I would like to come to you, Narayanan. Fertiglobe is one of the leading hydrogen and ammonia players in the region. As Africa's hydrogen economy grows, what are the most critical skills and competences you see emerging across the value chain, from production to logistics to export? Tell us a little bit more. Oh, it's not on? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. First, thank you for having me here. It's a privilege to be here with the policymakers, the leaders, the industrial sector, and also a lot of technocrats. So, with all coming here and gathering here for with a common goal to look at the role of Africa. Yeah, I think that's what I see, that today's program, role of Africa in the about the role of Africa in the growing hydrogen world. Yeah, so thank you for having me here again. Yeah, so, as I said, yeah, I think when I talk about hydrogen, and when we talk about hydrogen, we are talking about the next industrial revolution. That's what I would say. Yeah, because like any other revolution, industrial revolution, the key is actually the one which transforms, which undertakes it, is actually the people. And it's, of course, resources are key, but here the one which underlines is actually people. And in the entire value chain of hydrogen, or even ammonia, because we are the ammonia producer, for us in the value chain of ammonia, right from renewable energy to electrolysis of hydrogen, converting that into ammonia, and then later on even logistics. I think we also talked about, the earlier speakers talked about exports, logistics, everything. I think the key is about having that human capability. And then that human capability, the way we define, is actually multi-skilling. Multi-skilling is basically those who can actually bridge molecules and data. Yeah, this is where we are heading into. Precisely, we need engineers. We are training engineers in such a way that they're not only experts in electrolysis, but also in terms of algorithms or artificial intelligence. We need technicians who just not do only welding, but they also need to be understanding, because a lot of new technologies in terms of data-driven welding technologies. And finally, even the safety specialists, they are not just those who do only HAZOPs, but they also need to be competent in doing the green certification. Yeah, this is where multi-skilled professionals across the value chain is what we need. Yeah, so I think we just saw some speakers talking about the countries which are evolving programs on hydrogen. Yeah, I think if you Google it, in fact, I should say if you chat GPT it, you would see that more than 40 countries have actually come out with strategies on hydrogen.
Yeah.
But there are very, very few countries which have actually got people strategies or human strategies to support that hydrogen strategies. Yeah, we can have a hydrogen strategy, most of the countries do that, but underlying factor, we believe, is a people strategy. Yeah, so that's where, and for us in Africa, I think the key, the differentiator is we have a very talented, skilled, and most adaptable people. I think if the gap we need to bridge is this, in terms of making them competent, and then we at Fertiglobe this is what we are actually doing. This is where we are really take pride in terms of ensuring that our people are the lead in terms of the next generation of this evolution.
Yeah. Thank you so much, because yesterday we already spoke about the actual social and impact the hydrogen sector can have for African industries and the industrial revolution. In the title here we also said that building a workforce for a just energy transition, and we want to speak today about hydrogen or green ammonia, all the derivatives being a vehicle for that. And to see that Egypt is already on the right path, I think for me, I'm in Egypt for the first time. I'm responsible for the topic of energy. You see a lot of the German companies already choose Egyptians as their representatives. You have a lot of skilled force here already. In other countries, it's very different. You still have a lot of German expats. No, I think Egypt is doing that very well. But Honorable Minister, I would like to ask you, where do you see best practices in this public-private partnership? You already said 2026 there's supposed to be new courses on hydrogen, etc. But where do you see the public-private partnership here in Egypt in the sector?
Yeah, Thank you again. But from my point of view, or my position as an educational official, I think we have a very good private-public partnership in TVET education for years right now. I think it's 40 years. Again, supported by our friends, the Germans, from the very old beginning. I think we are now, we are having the dual education system for 40 years right now. At the end of the day, the industry is a main driver. And we have in education a very unique challenge. Working in education, either it's TVET education or university education or even postgraduate at a sense, that is, we are working for the future. This is a very important challenge facing the educational institutes at large. We are working for a future that is not known now. So we are, for example, if we are talking about the TVET education, graduates are graduating from the schools with the age of 18 to 20. So we need them to live for 40 years of professional life in a world that changes every maybe 6 months or something like that. So it's a challenge. What type of information that we would like to give them, what type of skills and competencies that we would like to give them. At the end of the day, the industry demands a ready for work graduate, technician or an engineer or whatever in between for the full spectrum. On the other hand, we need someone that can live in a world that is changing, so we need to teach them other skills like self-learning, adapting, and adapting with the future with a very different pace from our times. For example, I myself, I had to change my career 5 times during the past 30 years, for example. But I think my son would do this the 5 times maybe in 5 years. So it is a very challenging point of view. So in education, the industry is not to take over the education, but to participate in a way that we have this kind of a graduate that is able to continue in the industry or continue in work for 40 years, but ready to work immediately after graduating. And this is what we are doing right now by this public-private partnership or education industry partnership. And by industry, I mean every type of industry, not just manufacturing. I'm talking about transportation, hotels, hospitalities, retail, every other type of industry. At the end of the day, this is the crucial point of view from our side, because at the end of the day, industry provided us with several components. The first one is the skill and competency matrices that you mentioned. For example, for a graduate that is going to be working in this particular industry. For example, as a result of this, this year we started, for example, to teach programming and AI in grade 10 in public schools and in general education schools. Next year we are going to introduce this kind of programming and AI in all technical schools, all TVET education. Yes, I'm graduating an electrician or a carpenter or a hydrogen maintenance personnel, but I need him to know about AI. I need him to know about how to write small programs. But at the end of the day, we anticipate in the very short coming future, maybe in a year or two, this kind of handiwork will require a lot of knowledge about doing some programming for machines, for example. Nobody will be using simple tools. They will be using maybe handy tools, but needs writing some programs or configuration or something like that. So this is actually an industry need, a skill or a competency that comes from the industry, and we implemented it in our educational system. So the first thing that we get from the industry is the skill matrices that is required. The second thing is the training and the work experience opportunities for our students. When we partner with the industry, there is a lot of models, as I mentioned, Applied Technology School, where the partner comes to the school, dual education, where the students are going to the industrial partner to have training inside the institution itself, or even a school inside the institution. So it's a lot of things. And we have, by the way, we have reformed the educational law in past 2 months to add a lot of flexibilities in the technical and vocational education systems, that we can do a lot with the industry according to the needs and the nature of this kind of particular discipline and job requirements. The third thing is at the end of the day is the job market itself. If an industrial partner is already in the educational system, then he has graduates that are ready for work immediately, so they can offer them jobs immediately. So at the end of the day, it's, from our point of view, it's a must to have. We can never, as educational institutes, in all kinds of education, primary education to, again, postgraduate education, we cannot work by ourselves. We need the partnership from the industry. Either it's a private or public. At the end of the day, I mentioned that we have a nuclear energy school that is, our partner is a governmental organization that is the Authority for Nuclear Energy of Egypt, part of the Ministry of Energy and Electricity. But at the end of the day, we need this kind of partnership with the industrial provider itself. Yeah. Thank you.
And I think I love that you both are hinting at the same things, this multi-skilling, and that this is already included in curricula and being thought of. And love your statement of we don't know what kind of industry we will have in a couple of years. Just one more round of questions. I could talk to you longer, but we need to continue with the program. Narayanan, Fertiglobe is not only active in Egypt, also active in Africa and the Middle East. How do you see cross-regional cooperation and in supporting Africa's workforce? Where do you see the connections between regions and countries in this space?
Yeah, as I said, Fertiglobe is in Egypt, and we are also in Algeria. We are also in the Middle East. We are also the largest exporter of nitrogen-based fertilizers in the world. We were the first in this region, not just in Egypt, in this region, to have piloted green ammonia, green hydrogen, and also the first in the world to have shipped green ammonia way back in September 2023, from Egypt.
Very impressive.
Yeah, so I think the cross-regional, for me, the superpower of Africa and where we are is mainly because of the regional collaboration. And it's between the Middle East, between the Egypt or Africa, and also the Europe. Yeah, that's the superpower of Africa. So each region brings its own strength. Yeah, the Middle East brings basically the scale, capital. The Europe brings the technology. It brings even I would say, the certification programs, because when you talk about green, it's all about, you can claim green. What is green? Yeah. How do you certify it? The whole certification program, everything behind that, Europe brings. But then what Africa and we bring is actually the potential for the alternate energies, yeah, particularly on whether it's on the wind or solar, and also most importantly, the skilled manpower. Yeah? So just imagine if the three collaborate, and that's what we are doing as a company. And then three can collaborate together and then make the workforce fit for future. That's what we are doing. We not only are building assets of future at all these countries, but we are also developing our workforce as a workforce of the future. Because it's just not sufficient that you have high technologies. It's not just sufficient that you have good plants, but you also need those people who are capable in operating them and maintaining them. And then I think I'm proud to say that the way we operate and by investing in our people, and today, whether it's in the energy efficiency or whether it's in the production efficiency, we stand at the top quartile of the world in terms of our operational improvements, operational efficiencies, even the costs. Yeah. So end of the day, the value for a business is in actually delivering the same value or delivering the molecule at the lowest cost. And all this is this collaborative exercise between the regions. And then the way we are trying to leverage from these three regions, and they make the workforce adaptable for that, train them, make them more competent to be the workforce of the future, is what makes us strong and that we want to continue to do that. And definitely, like Minister said, this is exactly where we want to really collaborate. And so we have also had a graduation program where we invest in our people through graduation program. Last year, we actually recruited 14 young engineers from the top universities. As we speak now, we are actually recruiting one more set of people. We're also looking at recruiting technicians for our workforce of future, investing a lot in leadership development. And this is where we are spending our energy and time in terms of making it as to be fit for future. At the same time, not just being fit for future, but also so that others learn from us.
Yeah.
We want to be the top so that others learn from us.
Thank you so much. I think it's so important, as you being a leader in this country and even globally, to underline how important that is to train the next generation, to train the workforce of the future, because there's lots of things to come and lots of people that still need jobs. And that would be my last question to you today, Honorable Minister. How can we ensure that this energy transition and then green ammonia, hydrogen, can actually empower not only high-skilled professionals, but also underserved youth in a country like Egypt?
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, this is one of the energy in general is part of the well-being and wellness of the people. At the end of the day, if we provide cheap, renewable, green, clean energy, then we can provide energy to serve remote places, and we can enhance the life of the people of Egypt. This is one part of it. Regarding industries like the fertilizers industry, in a way that we see, for example, the agriculture sector in Egypt it's a very important part. Yes, we were, I think, one of the first region all over the world that invented agriculture in a way. So it's here on the banks of the Nile.
Invented almost everything.
Yeah, almost everything. But for example, if we take a certain crop, for example. I have been reading a very interesting article 2 days or 3 days ago about the tomato production, for example, from a piece of land. Egypt, we are not up to the standards, for example, that is in Netherlands. I think we are producing maybe 10% of the amount of tomatoes from the same piece of land that is done in Netherlands, for example. This is because there is a lot of things to be done here. For example, intelligent way of doing fertilizing and pesticide, for example, protection and other things. So I think the agriculture sector is an energy hungry sector that needs a lot, not directly to the process itself, but for example, producing the green ammonia or the nitrogen-based fertilizers to increase the production rate of lands and crops. So wherever we go to human development, or wherever we go into providing better life for people, well-being, wellness, and so on, the energy is a key factor here. So, from our point of view, as part of the Egyptian government, as the Ministry of Education and Technical Education, and as part of the Human Development Group, we have a group of ministries in the government that are related only to human development, like the Ministry of Education and Technical Education, the Ministry of Higher Education, the Ministry of Youth and Sports, the Ministry of Health, and other ministries. So our main focus is the human development, and of course, this would include creating new jobs, providing upskilled workers on different levels, from engineers to technicians and technologists in the middle, and to provide the energy for remote places, to provide better life, provide cheaper food, and that's the entire work of the government right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think this is the perfect finishing statement. Thank you both so much for being here. I would like to underline skills development is the key to the hydrogen sector's success. We need to utilize the potential of the triangle. I love that aspect between Egypt and the African continent, Egypt being at the triangle part here, Europe and also the Middle East. Thank you so much for being here. A round of applause for the great speakers. And with this, I would like to hand over to our next moderator, Dr. Nicole Graf. Please, the stage is yours and the panel is yours. Thank you so much. Sorry. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Kadi. Oh, that's loud. A warm welcome from my side as well. As introduced, my name is Nicole Graf. I'm president of the Cooperative State University in Germany, and I was very pleased to hear from Your Excellency Minister that work-based training is an issue you're facing and addressing in order to foster employability of graduates and to develop future skills for the students and the population here in order to improve and drive competitiveness of the markets. We are now going to have a further glance into hydrogen in Africa, and I am happy to welcome on the stage the participants of the following panel. I would briefly introduce them and ask them to come on stage as I call them by their names. Our first panelist will be Ulrich Stahl from KSB. Ulrich, where are you? So, as he is coming, Ulrich Stahl is Global Project Leader for Hydrogen at KSB, and he has been steering the firm's Hydrogen at KSB initiative since 2021 already, focusing on strategy development and global business coordination for hydrogen applications. Holding a master in business administration and mechanical engineering from the Technical University in Darmstadt. For those of you who don't know where Darmstadt is, very close to Frankfurt, a bit south of that. And you more or less spent your entire professional career in various sales and corporate strategy function at KSB before taking your current role. You will give a short impulse on hydrogen and KSB's role before we call the other panelists on the stage. So the stage is yours for the time being.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole, for the introduction, and warm welcome also from my side. I'm happy to present how KSB is positioning in the hydrogen or shaping the hydrogen economy. Some figures about our KSB in a nutshell. We are, as a 3 billion revenue company, we are one of the global leading suppliers of pumps and valves and a comprehensive bunch of services all around these products. We are employing roughly 16,400 people, and we have a global presence with more than 300 representation offices, sales, service companies all over the world, with manufacturing on all continents. So wherever you need KSB support, you will find somebody from us next to you. But what is the most important topic is, and that's, let's say, the base of our success, that we were able to gather massive know-how during more than 150 years since we exist across a broad range of applications we serve. And also, if you look on the decarbonization value chain, and I don't say hydrogen value chain, I say decarbonization value chain, because we have a really rather broad look on all the applications, and you see it's very diverse. It starts with a circular economy in the chemical industry, and then it goes down to the hydrogen value chain, electrolysis, the derivatives, the use cases, and is also linked to the carbon capture value chain. And KSB has a very, very broad portfolio across all relevant standards, so we are able to have an offering along this whole picture, along this whole value chain. So wherever you need pumps and valves, we are happy to support you here. And we are not a newbie in this business. You can see since we tracked this, we already generated more than 60 million of sales revenue with decarbonization projects. And we have a funnel of more than 340 projects, which we are actively developing currently worldwide with our valued customers and partners. So KSB is quite H2 active. And what we can contribute, you know, we are delivering components, but these components, pumps and valves, are quite crucial for the lifetime of hydrogen systems, for the reliability, and also have an impact on CapEx and OpEx. Let me give you some examples. If we start with electrolysis, you will find our products more on the liquid side. And here we are not talking about just water, it's ultra pure water, if you talk about PEM electrolysis, for example. And if you expose metallic products to ultra pure water, if it's standard components, metallic components, you will observe a surface corrosion within a very short time. And that leads to a dissolvement of ions of this surface. It is released to the media, to the ultra pure water, conductivity rises, and then we talk about ion poisoning of the stack. And the stack is accounts for 45% of the capex of an electrolyzer. So if this harms the stack, reliability will go down, lifetime will go down. So our products have a very important impact on the whole system. Yeah? That shows this example. And Nicole just said it, we started already in 21 to engage in this, and we have many iterations with our valued customers. So as we have the capability of our own laboratory, we developed solutions to prevent exactly this phenomenon. Yeah? And same approach, other solution also on the alkaline side. So that is just a very good example from my point of view to show the impact of our products on whole systems. And also if you look on the OpEx side, you know that pumps are quite energy consuming components. So if we design and if we are able to, let's say, involve and engage in very early phase, we can design the pump fitting very much to the duty points, and we have these high efficient motors, and that brings down energy consumption with energy efficient solution. So that has a direct impact on the usage of the valuable renewable energy, brings down the levelized cost of hydrogen. Yeah. Looking on the power to X, it's the same. If we have the chance to consult, to exchange with our partners in a very early phase, we can directly find fit-for-purpose solutions and avoid over-engineering, and that helps us to bring down CapEx and OpEx also due to standardization, optimization. Yeah. Also in terms of safety, which is a highly relevant topic if you talk about power to X, we developed a very innovative solution, yeah, with our own additive manufacturing department. We have a 3D printed double containment shroud for our magnetic coupled pump. And that is really a very compact solution which provides 2 safety layers, and in between a vacuum layer which helps to detect damages from external or internal side in a very early phase and guarantees a smooth maintenance process and high safety. So that's innovation which really helps in this context. And the last aspect I want to raise with Power-to-X is the flexibility, yeah? Because it's not easy always to match Power-to-X processes to renewable energy supply. Because Power-to-X processes, for example, take the methanol synthesis, they are very steady processes, and as you can imagine, the supply of renewable energy is quite variable. So if you just merge these two aspects or these two processes together, you will need very, very high buffer storage capacity to guarantee this steady hydrogen supply for the Power-to-X process. And that is high capex and not viable business case. So you have to bring it down. And there we are working together with our partners to install or to achieve a certain flexibility in these processes. And if you have this, if you can bring down the load, if you have if you can have a flexibility from hour to hour, you can bring down the storage requirements, you bring down directly the capex, and the business case become viable. So, and that we convert also to our products with smart metering, providing the necessary data points and a variable speed drive to then adjust also our products to the required performance of the process. So you see it makes sense to talk to us, to involve us in projects in a very early phase, to harness this know-how we can contribute. Now I want to tackle a little bit the topic of this panel, how to use green hydrogen for industrial growth here in Africa, how to harness green hydrogen for domestic industrialization, what are strategies for a local value chain, and to ensure that hydrogen translates into jobs and innovation. And I don't want to anticipate our panel now, but I just want to highlight two aspects that are fundamental from my point of view, just as a food for thought. The first topic is to orchestrate a supply chain of companies and partners that can contribute to such a domestic value chain with companies which are here on the continent, on the place, with own capacity, with own people, backed maybe by the whole organization, like it is the case in KSB, and with the capabilities to provide the jobs, to provide the training to the people, and to talk about whatever is necessary to bring the added value here. And in the second step, we need to orchestrate and to find a collaborative approach of all these players to jointly develop, in the best case, vertically integrated projects to bring as much added value as possible to this nice continent here. And I think if I see all the companies which were on stage already, one can have already an idea which companies this could be. Yeah. So KSB is, no, that's a black screen. Oh, no, there we are. KSB is definitely one of these companies. Yeah, we have a strong commitment to Africa since a very, very long time. The representative office here in Cairo is here since 1950 already, and we have also a very modern service facility here in the city. So we bring the capabilities to the table to do whatever is necessary to shape the hydrogen future. And also we have one of our largest manufacturing facilities here on the continent in South Africa, already also founded a long time ago, 1959, and it's the largest outside of Germany and France we have here in Africa. And on top of this, we have all over the continent our own companies to represent KSB and to consult you. That's so far from my side the impulse. the most important topics for this panel and in general for shaping hydrogen future here in Africa from my side is leveraging the expertise. We have expertise in what we do, and other companies also presented their expertise here in what they do, and we have to bring all this expertise to the table, and we have to foster the collaboration to make a really bold approach to develop and shape hydrogen future out of that. We have to embrace innovation to bring down costs, to make the ramp up and industrialization a viable business case, and for sure we need the local footprint. Thanks, that's from my side, and now I'm happy to discuss further with you in the coffee breaks and also to see you at our booth back behind this wall there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Ulrich, for that short and impressive introduction into, well, you more or less already prepared and opened the field for our coming discussion. And we know KSB is not only H2 ready, it's H2 active. I would now call on stage the other panelists, and first of all, I would like to welcome Johannes Shipepe, Senior Economic Development Manager of Hyphen Hydrogen Energy in Namibia. We already saw your colleague Tony Beukes yesterday here on the stage. Welcome. Take a seat, and please, as you are taking the seat, just briefly for those in the audience who might not have attended yesterday's discussion sessions, briefly explain what Hyphen Hydrogen Energy, which role they play in the hydrogen field.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. It's definitely a pleasure to be here. So yes, as introduced, my name is Johannes Shipepe. I work for a green hydrogen developer in Namibia called Hyphen Hydrogen Energy. So we were awarded back in 2021 through a government procurement process the rights and the concession to explore large-scale, gigawatt-scale export hydrogen projects in Namibia, particularly in the southern coast of Namibia. So we are planning to develop about a $10 billion $10 project, about 6 to 8 gigawatts of renewable energy to produce about 350,000 tons of hydrogen. And we want to use that hydrogen to produce around 2 million tons of ammonia. We are currently obviously in the feasibility study stage, and over the next year, 2 years, we'll be looking to finalize that and hopefully move into the construction phase. We're really happy to be here and looking forward to discussing further with you.
Thank you, Johannes. Welcome again in Egypt at our Hydrogen in Africa conference, directly from Namibia here to Cairo. I would now like to welcome on stage Dr. Hans-Ulrich Thierbach. Dr. Thierbach is a German engineer and business executive who served multiple years as a managing director of Steinmüller Engineering, which is a part of the IHI Group, a Japanese company, focusing on power plant technology, combustion systems, and energy transition engineering. In 2025, so this year, you step back from the day-to-day executive role, and now you remain in an advisory function, supporting the company's strategic shift towards IPC contracts in clean energy and emission control technologies. Welcome on stage, and also for you, would you just briefly give us an insight into Steinmüller's activities in hydrogen?
Yeah, thank you for the warm introduction. So everything about myself is said. Good day to all of you. I'm glad to be here and to have the chance to give some input to the further discussion. We as Steinmüller and also IHI is busy in the energy area since centuries. So IHI has been founded in 1852 and has to do all this transformation in energy business in the recent decades. And we are focusing as an IHI group on the ammonia value chain. So Japan is an island, we know that, and it's difficult to transport hydrogen to Japan. And therefore, we have developed a lot of technologies in the IHI group to utilize ammonia as an energy carrier, gas turbines driven by ammonia, marine machines for ammonia. We have just, as an IHI group, also executed a large-scale test in a power station, a coal-fired power station with 1,000 megawatts, where 20% of the power has been replaced by ammonia combustion without any increase of emissions. So it has been shown in a large-scale application that ammonia can be an energy carrier for the future, and that is our strategy for the development of green energy, green sources for energy, and this has been started inside IHI Group already since 2012, something like that, in that area. So we are busy and we are ready to support this transformation, but we are also ready to support the current steps for CO2 reduction, and that may not be at the first step ammonia as an energy carrier.
Thank you very much for the short introduction. I remember we have already discussed that issue a while ago, 2022, if I remember right, also in Egypt, Sharm el-Sheikh, at the World Climate Summit, the COP27, and I'm happy that we can follow up on that 3 years after. And I'm also happy to welcome on stage now one of the executive leaders of ThyssenKrupp Uhde Egypt, Thomas Kufal, the managing director, CEO of ThyssenKrupp Uhde here, so more or less a local one. ThyssenKrupp Uhde Egypt is a subsidiary specializing in engineering and construction of chemical parts. Mr. Kufal has been instrumental in leading significant projects in Egypt's fertilizer and chemical industries, including a 220 million CO2 recovery initiative with MOPCO aimed at enhancing sustainable urea and ammonia production. Now, I already took a bit of what you are probably saying, but it's always better to have a primary source for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Nicole, thank you very much. Answering the question you didn't ask, what connects us to this? So Egypt is our home market. More than also 100 years, not as much as KSB. I just learned history in engineering, a dinosaur there. But having the home market for fertilizer here in Egypt, we built 15 out of 16 plants here in Egypt. Consider ourselves as the #1 ammonia technology provider. And this brings then also the bridge to where do we see our future, beside also methanol, green ammonia on the installed base we have here in Egypt as a carrier for hydrogen. And now going 2 levels up, ThyssenKrupp, everyone has different associations with this. Some are steel, some are elevators, some are submarines. So Uhde is always one of the least they have. But we belong to the segment Decarbon Technologies, by the name already, Decarbon. We are the sister or brother of Nucera, who are manufacturing the electrolyzers. So there are various possibilities for us to participate in hydrogen, and especially into green hydrogen.
Thank you very much, Thomas. So, only one chair being left. I'm welcoming Rasha Issa, Domestic Business Development Manager of Petrojet Egypt. There she's coming. Petrojet Egypt, she's serving the company's strategic activities across oil, gas, and petrochemical sectors. And Rasha, welcome on the stage, and maybe as well from your side, a few words on Petrojet and hydrogen activities.
Well, thank you for having me today, and I would like first to apologize on behalf of our CEO for not being presented today in the panel due to urgent commitment. Petrojet, actually, I will start with introducing Petrojet is a state-owned company, belongs to the Egyptian petroleum sector, and we are considered as one of the leading EPC companies across the MEA region. We are operating in 14 countries in the Middle East and Africa. And we are ranked on the ENR top list for international and global contractors for 15 years in sequence now. We provide our services, integrated services end-to-end to large-scale and complex projects for oil, gas, petrochemicals, fertilizers, industrial, and power sector, including the conventional, renewable, and nuclear power plants. Petrojet is backed by 50 years of experience and 44,000 employees. We enjoy having large-scale construction and fabrication assets. Actually, we are recognized as international fabricator for static equipment and offshore structures. Actually, being in this panel and this occasion for green hydrogen, we believe that we can be a key enabler to provide and contribute to the full chain of the green hydrogen construction and realize the green hydrogen program in Egypt.
Thank you so much, Rasha. And maybe just briefly, in which context am I leading the discussion here? What is my context to hydrogen? I am not only president of a university, of a German university, where we do have research areas, but I am proud head of the supervisory board of INP, and for that also have insights in a company that drives projects in all kinds of power systems and projects. You actually have a quite difficult task to fulfill. I'm not aware whether you really know about what our expectations are. We want to have a very long-lasting future look into the possible developments of hydrogen-driven areas, future scenarios beyond production and export. We are not really looking to what is tomorrow, but we're for sure opening the horizon towards the next 20, 30, maybe even 50 years, which is nothing compared to Egyptian history, but it for sure requires some imagination. So questions we want to look at is how African countries move from hydrogen export, which today is not the case yet, so even that is future, from export ambitions to building domestic industries powered by green hydrogen. Which sectors, such as, of course, fertilizers, steel, or mobility, hold the greatest promise for using hydrogen locally? What needs to be in place to ensure hydrogen investments that create jobs, skills, and opportunities on the local value chain? And how can government design policies and incentives that balance export goals with domestic industrialization? So those are questions we want to have a look at. And I would like to start actually, Hans Ulrich Thierberg, with you in once more having a closer glance at Steinmüller's role, not only in hydrogen, but maybe starting first, you have to walk before you start running. Where you see hydrogen's role in the decarbonization process?
Yeah, I would like to put the thing on the feet again and would draw attention on the first steps we have to do. And we look far away, but I think to realize the basis for effective utilization of hydrogen is very important. And why do we go for hydrogen? Hydrogen, it's not a purpose for itself. Hydrogen is a way to reduce CO2 emissions. And as an engineer, I have to say, first we should utilize all the direct utilization of power to reduce CO2 emissions. And the really effect with hydrogen can only come up if we have a significant surplus in renewable energy available. Without this relevant surplus in renewable energy, hydrogen has, at least as an energy carrier, no meaning. So that doesn't make sense to produce hydrogen with a power-to-power efficiency of 20% and utilize hydrogen in areas where we could utilize power directly. So that is the most important topic, that we have a very, very huge amount of renewable energy available to be capable to store it and to utilize it as a hydrogen or ammonia as an energy carrier. Then only then it makes sense. And to be honest, I'm as a grandfather of 6 grandchildren, I'm interested to save the environment of our globe and not to save some individual interests of nations. So that must be the purpose. And of course, the utilization as a material can start much earlier, because you save immediately CO2 emissions if you utilize green ammonia in the plants. That can be start immediately. But the energy supply with hydrogen is a long-lasting process and is a long-lasting transformation of the total global energy system.
Thank you very much. I would like to continue with Thomas, because Thyssen does it all already. Ammonia, methanol, hydrogen technologies. Where do you see the biggest technical challenges in scaling up green hydrogen and ammonia plants in emerging markets, like the African ones where you already showed the footprint in plenty of them?
Yeah, it is all about scaling it up to make it economically, that it makes sense for those projects. That's a very important issue, and you need, and we had this yesterday in various panels already, a valuable off-taker concept, because that's what's all about at the moment. We had the hype, or we have the hype for 5 years now, everything goes green. We had it the same in our company, and as Egyptian would say, shwaya shwaya. It will all take time, and I liked it, as you said, don't have a look into the next 2 or 3 years, but into the wider future. I think there are 2 aspects also, one coming from the minister, or from the deputy minister, he said before. You have a lot of renewable sources. We are all talking about solar and wind, but also you have water. I have to mention this because in your introduction movie Kima, 1958, we built the first green hydrogen plant here in Egypt with water. The intention in those days was a different one, not to save the planet, but so there's also water available here. And that's a resource which can make it very, can give you a really great future here. The second thing is, and here, I don't like the word best cost country. I had it in a minister talk a few weeks ago where I said I would call it best capable country. And because best cost country, I'm here for many years now. And when you see what does it mean, best cost country, and you have 200 employees suffering from devaluation, unstable currency, you always get little stomach feelings when you say best cost country. That's good for one side, but the other side is suffering from that. So I would say best capable countries, because and this is also what Egypt can give into Africa. You have a very strong young generation. You have very well-educated people, but they need a chance. They also need a chance from us in the industry to develop them. And we also, as a company, have the big task to take these people with us, also in the developments of new technologies, and not like the arrogant Western Europe partner, just use the sources and then make the money by yourself, but take countries like Egypt with us, and other African countries should follow there. Yeah.
Thank you. That were some statements where we could easily spend an hour to follow up on. But what I really would like to do is take two of the comments you made on population and industry. I mean, it's not only best cost. You mentioned you need qualified workforce to develop a country, and I mean, Egypt has 110 million inhabitants, which is a large population compared to Namibia, for instance, with only 3 million. And also, if we compare the industry development and industry base of Egypt, it's quite different comparing it to Namibia. Hyphen, nevertheless, has set high standards for local value creation already. Could you maybe give us some more insight into your recent activities in empowering local businesses and the industry, and maybe also, not everybody is so aware of what Namibia's leading industry is, besides of agriculture and besides tourism. So what are you really empowering with your hydrogen energy?
Yeah. No, thanks for that question. I mean, you're right in the sense that Namibia is a small economy. Of course, 3 million people, as we have enough land. That's why tourism is one of, obviously, our big contributors to GDP. Agriculture and mining is actually the biggest contributor to our economy. And that in itself, for the past 5 to 10 years, have exposed us to a lot of vulnerabilities to commodity prices. And I think as government strategy, we are now trying to understand how we can try and diversify our industries, our sectors, and our economy, so that we can start to create more opportunities for development, but also more opportunities for employment for our people. And that's why green hydrogen features quite strongly in our national development plans for the next 5 years. It's actually green industrialization, so exploring industrialized opportunities using green and renewable energy resources. So over the past, I think, 3 to 4 years, government has been supporting private sector to come and invest in green hydrogen. So what you would see as part of our government's green hydrogen strategy is that they have opened the market for companies like Hyphen to explore large-scale export opportunities. But at the same time, we said, how do we also understand how we can utilize hydrogen or ammonia in our local economy and create local value? That is why you would see government has actually supported 3 different developers with grant funding for them to undertake pilot projects. One project looks at developing green ammonia, and they want to use that ammonia to produce fertilizer and explore a downstream fertilizer market locally. And of course, there's also an opportunity to then support the agricultural industry, but then you can also export that product to other markets in the region. Other projects, and my colleague yesterday has mentioned this, looks at using hydrogen to reduce the ore content of iron and produce directly reduced iron ore. And that project is actually in implementation stage, and they're actually looking to ramp up to the second phase and hopefully utilize a larger base of iron and of course export that as well. That in itself also presents opportunities for you to start linking your green hydrogen industry with your mining industry for you to create additional value in country. And then another project looks at using the hydrogen and putting up refueling stations for buses, trucks to refuel and utilize the hydrogen. Obviously, there are also plans long-term to target the mining industry, as there are some mines that have indicated plans to sort of refurbish their fleet to take hydrogen. But coming back to hydrogen and Hyphen, and coming back to your question around what are some of the things we have done to try and stimulate and empower local and in-country value. So Hyphen, as part of our feasibility and implementation agreement that we have with government, we have developed what we call a socio-economic development framework. And that framework essentially tries to understand how we can maximize and optimize the participation of Namibians and Namibian businesses. So what we have committed as part of that framework is, we said, for locals, we would want to ensure that for the jobs that we are creating, 90% of those jobs needs to go towards Namibians during the operations and the construction phase. 20% of that 90% needs to go towards youth, because we do have a serious youth unemployment challenge, and we wanted to make sure that we target that particular segment of the community as well. And then on the local content side, we said 30% of our investments that we are spending on construction and operations needs to go towards Namibian companies to provide goods and services as part of the project. So we are now in the process of understanding where exactly these opportunities are for employment and where the opportunities are for businesses to participate. And we are also developing strategies together with government to try and support skills development initiatives to try and train, upskill, reskill, and build the right capacity so that these Namibians can take up the opportunities in the construction and operations phase. At the same time, we're also building the capacity of Namibian companies so that they are ready to take up some of these opportunities, because what we have seen is that because Namibia is a small economy, very limited manufacturing and industrial base, there's a lot of support that will need to go towards local companies because we do not have the necessary experience of operating in some of these industries. So we will need to support these companies so that they are ready at some point to take up some of those opportunities.
Thank you very much for that very clear explanation and the path you were showing. Development of local businesses definitely needs infrastructure. You've explained that for Namibia. And if we are now coming back to our host country, Russia, Petrojet is one as Africa's leading engineering companies. Where do you see Petrojet's role in building the hydrogen infrastructure, not only for export terminals, but that's the topic of our panel, especially as well for local industry applications?
Well, thank Mr. Thomas for your remarks and your beliefs in Egypt capacity, and actually I will build on your words. Actually, Egypt enjoys clear vision in regards of decarbonization and sustainability objectives, and this vision is derived and deployed by the main energy authorities in Egypt, the Ministry of Petroleum and the Ministry of Electricity. This vision entails to increase the share of the renewable energy by 42% from the total produced power by 2030, and also to encompass not less than 5% of the green hydrogen produced worldwide to be in Egypt. These vision also were supported by comprehensive regulations, policies, incentives, and different financial schemes that really enhanced the climate of investment in Egypt and attracted a lot of developers from all over the world to develop the Egyptian renewable energy capacity. Many projects have been delivered and many are in pipeline, and we are following, as EPC contractor, we are following all these projects. We, even in the petroleum sector, many petroleum companies incorporated the renewable energy in their upstream and downstream operations. And here I would shift a lot to highlight the decarbonization objectives and plans under the umbrella of Ministry of Petroleum. We can see flow of projects related to flare gas recovery, waste heat recovery solutions, even more comprehensive projects in pipeline related to biofuel, developing biofuel plants, sustainable aviation fuels. And these projects are not just in pipeline or in plan phase, but they are subject to be to reach its financial closure and start construction by maybe the next half of next year. And what I wanted to tell that Egypt really put the plans into actions and capable to contribute to the decarbonization with the comprehensive procedures. And here comes Petrojet as a key enabler that can bring all these projects alive, including green hydrogen production. Petrojet can contribute to this process, starting from its infrastructure, whether the port terminals, the bunkering system, the desalination plant, the renewable energy concessions, downstream of the green hydrogen, the fertilizer plants, maybe 80% of the fertilizer plants have been delivered by Petrojet in cooperation with the ThyssenKrupp. And also for the green hydrogen process, we can work on maximizing localization thanks for our fabrication capacity and delivering critical equipment and even process equipment on modular base, which we believe this will be a plus for having the green hydrogen process in more economical base. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That sounds promising. And actually, engineers and experts and also government representatives often discuss the benefits between Power-to-X and electrolyzers. According to you, Ulrich, what is the lower hanging fruit, in your opinion? Power-to-X or electrolyzers? And do the benefits differ in Africa compared, well, first of all, within Africa, comparing the different countries you're acting in, and then also in comparison to different continents, maybe?
Yeah, let's start with the second question. So if you ask for differences, for Northern Africa, I think the big advantage is the connecting, the pipeline connections to Europe. Yeah, that makes really a difference, this Transmed and the Maghreb pipelines. So yeah, due to this fact, Northern Africa is considered as a strategic supply corridor for Europe, and with this, it has, let's say, also access on the funds, let's say, to develop this whole European backbone project and hydrogen supply. So that makes really a competitive difference, as you can. It's not. There's no cheaper way to supply hydrogen to Europe than via these pipelines. If you ask for low-hanging fruits, I think okay, if the Power-to-X derivatives should be green, you anyway need to link them to electrolyzers, so it's not either or, it's and. But if I think about now Egypt specifically, I think there's a vast experience with the fertilizers anyway here. So you have already a huge part of the value chain in the country, so that's also a domestic solution then. I think that is a low-hanging fruit to turn this into a low-emission product, yeah, in total. And if I link this to the access to the marine routes, let's say, to let's say build up a supply of low emission fuels for the marine, you have a total business case within the country. Yeah? That's for me really a low hanging fruit and something that should be tackled here in Egypt. Yeah.
Thank you. The last question will be an easy one, and it will be the same one for all of you. And I all ask for a personal statement according to your personal conviction on where will hydrogen stand in Africa in the year 2035. So in 10 years from now. And Johannes, I would like to start with you.
I think it will play a much more prominent role as far as the African integration is concerned. And I think for Namibia in particular, if you look at our partners in the SADC region, South Africa, Angola on the north, Zambia, Zimbabwe, there's definitely an important role that green hydrogen can play, but not only just green hydrogen, but also the associated infrastructure that comes with the hydrogen, right? So if we put up large-scale electrical infrastructure, we are able to trade electricity between neighbors, and at the same time, you could easily decarbonize your grid. You're also then to play on each other's strengths. So if you look at Namibia providing hydrogen or ammonia to South Africa has huge industrial bases, and they need significant amounts of hydrogen to then further industrialize their industries. So there's a lot of regional integration that we see could play between Southern Africa, but also the larger African region as far as you talk about the Africa Continental Free Trade Arrangement. But we also see that with this comes a lot of trade of skills and services across the various regions. So we are looking forward to further engaging, of course, with our neighboring countries in the African region, and looking to develop strategies that allows us to integrate each other's resources into the global framework.
Thank you, Johannes. Hans-Ulrich, how about you?
Yeah, I'm already mentioned that I'm not convinced that a lot of power will come from green hydrogen in future, but I think that a lot of utilization of renewable energy that can be made available in that area and will be made available. We heard about the development of installation of renewable sources, and with the increase of these renewable sources, mainly I hope we can increase the share of, for example, green ammonia. We're currently talking about less than 1% of green ammonia, and that is a process we anyway have to undertake for our fertilizer industry. Why not utilizing these opportunities with green energy and with green hydrogen to produce products that we otherwise would produce out of resources with CO2 emissions. So that is for me the much more interesting and cost-efficient way for reduction of CO2 emissions. And again, first step would be to connect all the grids in Africa to make power available in all areas, and to reduce, for example, in South Africa, the huge coal fleet with renewable power. So that is a big step that needs to be undertaken, and that I can imagine will happen in the next 10 years.
Thank you, Hans-Ulrich. Somehow it's quite a good feeling to talk about fertilization at the banks of the Nile. I mean, that has a historic relation, and if we are now bending the past and the future, hydrogen might play a role in that as well. Yeah, thank you. Then Thomas, up to you.
Yeah, I have a lot of sympathies for what Hans-Ulrich said. Hydrogen, honestly, I'm also not so sure it will play a role. But what I really hope is, with a change in the mindset of everyone in this crazy world, that renewable will play a much bigger role. And if this is a side effect from all this hydrogen hype, I would be happy.
Very short and compact statement. Yeah. Thank you so much. Rasha.
Well, I think as what have been shared during all the panels, that it is it is all about the combined efforts of all stakeholders involved in this industry. The financial institutions, the technology providers, the electrolyzer OEM, and the EPC contractors as well, and of course this will have more progressive expansion whenever there is a real need to substitute the fossil fuel, and there is a real need to have green power and green hydrogen as another solution for powering all our life activities.
Thank you, Rasha. Now we are completing the circle, more or less. You were opening, you are closing, Ulrich. The final words are yours.
Yeah, so I'm more on the optimistic side. So I think the decarbonization roadmaps, for sure, currently they have headwinds in the world globally, but the wheel won't be turned back. So it's a question of timing for sure and speed. Yeah, but I think hydrogen has its position in the whole decarbonization plan to decarbonize the hard-to-abate and only the hard-to-abate sectors. That is clear, nothing else. But therefore, Africa has the best or very good preconditions in terms of sun and wind. Now we also need to do the homework here in terms of regulation and skill building and all these topics. But I'm optimistic that within 10 years, definitely we will see more hydrogen projects and hydrogen capacity here on this continent.
Thank you, Ulrich. Thanks to all of you, my panelists. I'm happy because our discussion was not only an optimistic picture, it was quite controversial, and that's like the salt in a soup, which makes it much more interesting. And I hope that the audience follows my opinion in that. To come to an end, I guess what we can summarize, Kadi is already standing there, the future is yet to come. This is what famous Einstein said as well, Albert Einstein, I'm living in the future, not in the past. So the future is to come. It should be green, I guess that is something we can agree upon. And it might be hydrogen developed in case all of you contribute to it. Thank you very much for the interesting discussion. Thank you and have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much also to Nicole for this very, very engaging and great moderation. Is there a question? Yes. You need a microphone because we actually have a live stream. And if you need to leave, you can leave. No?
Okay, yeah. Is this microphone working now? Okay, 1, 2, 3, testing. Here we are, let's go. I tend to, number one, I thank the panel. The panel did a wonderful job and they covered all the export issues very well. Because here we have the maximum capacity not to supply all the renewable energy that Germany wants and the EU wants. We have that capacity. You made that very clear, that we have everything possible working for us here. We have the sunshine, we have everything. And we just need the support, investment, and technology. And that's what we're speaking about here. And we can export all the energy that Europe wants. Now, the thing is that I tend with the last gentleman that made his presentation, and he's optimistic about future energy and future. I believe that actually hydrogen is the future fuel, the fuel of the future. It is. That is the future. especially green hydrogen. And it doesn't have to be only green hydrogen, it can also be yellow hydrogen, it can be pink hydrogen, it can be, because in Namibia, we can get some pink hydrogen out of Namibia because Namibia is a small economy, but it has uranium. And then not only most of the uranium comes from Australia and Africa, we know that. Now, you have the capacity, that's what we can do. And that we have also the technology. Engineer Rasha, I thank her for sitting in for the chairman, the Petrojet chairman. Rasha, I thank you for sitting in for Engineer Walid. I know that...
Are you doing my job, or do you have a question?
No, my question is, before the question is, you deserve thanks. And this is what I'm conveying to you. I'm conveying to you thanks. And also, I'm not doing your job because you're doing an excellent job. And I would also like to thank your whole group, especially Engineer Walid Kamel, who did an excellent job putting this whole thing together. And you deserve thanks, not questions. You deserve absolute thanks.
Thank you.
And I'll end with that.
If the panel is available, is there any actual question to the panelists? No, I think we have enough time now in the afternoon to do that, so thank you again also from my side. So, you see a big thank you, shukran, here on the slide, because we have almost come to an end of this conference. It went very fast. I guess that's a good sign, because that means we engaged a lot. I loved some of the statements also in this panel. I think these are the thoughts that we want to leave you with. How can we actually involve hydrogen and its derivatives in our industries, in African industries, but also as a supplier for Europe? We had 2 full days full of conversations, and this afternoon we just want to use the time to see what the follow-up is. Because all of us go to a lot of conferences, and you go to a conference, you have connections, but the follow-up is actually the hardest part. To create actual impact after a conference is the hardest part. So in the afternoon, me and my colleague Wiebke will be in 2 of the meeting rooms, and we will just be there to get your feedback and also hear who was missing, who would you have liked to talk to. Maybe you saw them on the list of participants, you didn't meet them. Maybe some ideas came up that you would like to discuss that we can support in following up on. Because, of course, we want to make sure that next time we have more concrete projects to show for. That is the actual ultimate goal. We were asked yesterday, what is a successful conference for you? And I think a successful conference is if actual projects come out of this. And James Newper, who's not the head of the hydrogen program in Namibia anymore, he said, the hydrogen journey of Namibia started at one of our conferences. During COVID times, we were 50 people in one room. So we hope in a year or so, we will have another project that people will say it was created in these 2 days at the hydrogen conference in Africa. So let's all work together to make this a success. That means we'll have new projects or have created impact for the projects ongoing. So a round of applause for that, please. Yes, so we will be there for you to take your input. And now we will have the coffee break for now in the booth area, so we can also make sure that in an intimate space we can actually look at the companies that were represented as sponsors during this conference. So a huge thank you again for the support of all the sponsors, of the participants, and I think Allah, you were mentioned a lot. I want to underline this again. Without Allah, nothing would have been possible. He was the driver of this, he was the brains behind this, and he was the one that made it a success. Thank you, Allah, for your trust. Good job, Allah. Thank you. Yes. With this, am I forgetting anything, Wiebke? It's not on.
maybe you're forgetting, or well, she cannot thank herself, but the program you saw, the speakers you saw on stage, that is Kadi. And maybe also on behalf of Claudia, who couldn't join us today. She enjoyed the time here in Egypt so much that she was not feeling, she couldn't be here this morning, but I think also from her side, big thank you to everybody who came here, and she was very sad that she couldn't join us this morning. We're looking forward to further discussions with everybody.
Thank you very much. See you soon.